of the Council. First of all, I'd like to remind you of some of the domestic arrangements. The toilets are situated outside the meeting room opposite the stairs. Cold water is also available in the breakout area outside the meeting room. If the fire alarm should sound, please leave the meeting room by following the fire exit signs and meet on the Ipswich Town Football Club training pitch. Do not re-enter the building until you are told it is safe to do so. Please switch off all mobile phones or turn them to silent. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be filmed except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the Council to have consented to being filmed. By entering this meeting, you are also consenting to being filmed by the Council and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The Council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. And let us move to the agenda. Item number 1 is election of Chairman of the Council. Please, can I have nominations for the position of Chairman of the Council? Councillor Morley?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to propose Councillor Caston as Chair of the Council. James has been a well-regarded member of our councillors for almost 8 years now, 7 years. He's diligent, enthusiastic, and would make a fine chairman. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Lovingham? Haddingham? I beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second that.
Okay, thank you. Right, I will now ask the corporate manager. Oh, I beg your pardon. I've missed a bit. I beg your pardon. Right, are there any further nominations? Councillor Mellon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to nominate Councillor John Field for the position of Chairman of the Council. As I'm sure members will be aware, Councillor Field has been a councillor since way back in 2001 and has represented his community at both district and county. So he brings a lot of experience in local government to the role. And outside of council, he has a wealth of knowledge from his career in business, although he rarely mentions that. Another qualification that he brings to the current situation is that he's not a member of the largest two parties, not a Green, not a Conservative, so he could bring an important neutrality to the role of chairman. And lastly, since I understand that this may well be his last year as a councillor, I think it would be a fitting end to his long career if he was to serve as chairman for this next year. So I'm very happy to nominate Councillor John Field and ask Councillor Eburn to second the nomination.
Councillor Eburn?
Thank you, Chair. I'd be happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to take the first nomination, and if that nomination polls over 50% of the people who are here tonight, we will declare that person as duly elected. So could you place your votes, please, Vets? Sorry. Bit of a slip. Right. Could you place your votes, please? Thank you.
Oh, dear.
Councillor Wellham, are you having problems? Do you want to place your vote manually?
I think it has just happened.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah?
Yeah. So, Chair, that is 17 votes for and 13 against, so that is carried.
So I declare Councillor Caston duly elected, and if I vacate the chair for the last time this season, I'd like to kind of say a sort of a hello, thank you and goodbye. First of all, excuse me if I stand up, I need to look at my notes. I'd like to congratulate Councillor Caston on being elected chair. I'm sure that he will do a fine job. He's a fine gentleman, and I'm sure he'll be even-handed in his approach to how he deals with chairing the council meetings. And then I'd like to thank a few people, starting with Karen Sayer, who's our civic officer, who's not here this evening. Many of you may recall, or not as the case may be, that in fact Karen started as civic officer just when I was elected chairman. So her and myself have been muddling through in terms of our civic duties, and I think we've done reasonably well, and I congratulate Karen on what she's done. I think she's done a fine job. I think she's been very supportive and helped me through that element of my job. And in fact, you know, given the circumstances, I think that we were very happy that I was able to go to the East Anglian Children's Hospice this afternoon and present them with a cheque for £1,565. Secondly, I'd like to record my thanks to Jan Robinson, who has shown a remarkable patience and politeness in guiding me through the different council meetings, even when I'm trying to make a complete hash of it. And, you know, we are very lucky to have someone like Jan, who is the backbone of this meeting, and I do really appreciate and thank you for your help and support. And that also goes for Mandy, who kind of sits there in the background doing all the IT stuff, and, you know, someone has to do it, and someone has to do it well, and she does do it well. Then I guess that I would like to extend further thanks to the support I've had from Emily and Arthur, who have at appropriate moments intervened on constitutional matters, even while I was trying to not drown because I didn't know what the next score was. So really appreciate it, and you know, I'm sure you will do the same for James going forward. And finally, Council, I'd like to thank all of you for your support and perseverance during my year of office. It's been a pleasure, a challenge, and a very interesting experience to have been your chairman. And I thank you all very much indeed and wish you well under James's tutelage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I, Councillor James Caston, having been duly elected to the office of Chairman of Mid-Suffolk District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it in accordance to my best judgment and ability. I undertake that in performing the functions of Chairman, I shall observe the Code of Conduct as adopted by the Council, and I'll now sign the document. Right, I'd just like to say a few words. Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Morley for my nomination and Councillor Hadnam for my second, and for their kind words. It was very humbling to hear them. I would also like to thank my fellow councillors for supporting me. It is an honour to be elected as chairman. Secondly, I would like to thank the outgoing chairman, Councillor Eppignon. Councillor Eppignon took the chair in the dark days of COVID-19 and served with distinction throughout the previous municipal year. He has been an excellent example to me of how the duty should be carried out, and has done so faultlessly. The chairmanship is a tremendous honour. It is a neutral role on the council and a great tradition. I'm proud that everyone in front of me has made a decision to help guide the future and deal with the issues of residents who number between 1,700 to nearly 5,000 residents in some multi-member wards, and then beyond this, some 84,000 residents in the district as a whole. As councillors, we are constantly drawing on the work of our parish councils, community groups and residents for confirmation that we are dealing with matters in the right way. This work is not an easy task, but none of the members of this council took that easy option. It works well because every member has their own unique belief and understanding that feeds through to their fellow councillors, changing the council's understanding, sometimes slightly, sometimes greatly. That is why I stand here addressing a body that is always evolving and more complex and intelligent than the sum of its parts. And I know that every contribution and decision is made with the true belief that it makes Mid-Suffolk better. Without the senior leadership team, officers and staff now working here, at home and in Stowmarket, this could not be done. The competence and quality of their work I find really impressive. They are the muscles and circulatory system pumping life through this impressive beast of an organisation. In my view, everyone in this chamber shares the same fundamental goals. They want to reduce hardship and suffering and remove barriers preventing residents from being healthy and content, whilst building the best sustainable future for Mid-Suffolk. A collective goal, but what sometimes divides us is the difference in the argument of how we achieve this. I admire this great system of local government. Like I have said, instead of 34 people, I stand in front of thousands of people being represented in this chamber, and that is the true beauty of democracy in this country. My goal as chair is to understand and serve every member in this council, to make sure that administration is given the best platform to serve the district on, and just as importantly, the opposition are given the platform to serve, to scrutinise. Their values are equal in measure. Now I would like to talk a little bit about my chosen charity. For my chairman's charity, I have chosen Stowmarket ASD Saturday Clubs. This incredible charity provides correct and supportive environments for 5 to 11-year-olds with autism. It gives these youngsters a safe place where they are free to be themselves, whilst at the same time building social skills and developing friendships. Parents and guardians are encouraged to leave the child with the club whilst the child is accessing new activities. The parent or guardian has a chance to get away from ASD, to do things that are difficult to do with an autistic child. Sometimes it is important to spend time with a sibling of that child and help stop them from feeling marginalised, sometimes to rest from a challenging environment. The club is run by parents and guardians of the members and paid members of staff, with trustees overseeing the running. It is so important for autistic children to have a space in which they are allowed to be autistic and embrace their positive qualities. I chose this charity after a conversation with Councillor Terence Carter, where he explained the complexities and challenges of parenting an ASD child. This led me to contact one of my very good friends who has an autistic child. I asked her which charities helped her and do an amazing job, and Stowmarket ASD Saturday Clubs was the one she told me about. I'm sure you will all support me in raising money and awareness for this special charity. I look forward to this municipal year to observe the action from the chair, and I am grateful to everyone for this opportunity. I will do this to the best of my ability and judgment. Thank you very much. Right, so I'd like to move to item number 2, election of Vice Chairman of the Council. May I have nominations for Vice Chair of the Council? Councillor Flatman.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose Councillor Epignon. It would be a real shame to let all that practice go to waste. And I think he would be an absolute wealth of experience and help James through it when he can't attend different functions. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Haddingham.
Thanks. I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to your new role. Congratulations. I'd like to nominate Councillor Roland Warboys to be the Vice Chairman of the Council. Roland, as many of us know, was a teacher. He taught my 3 children at Stockland High School, and also he's someone who's very much rooted in his community and in the ward that he represents. I'm sure members will also be aware of his keen interest in cricket. And I'm sure as Vice Chairman of the Council, he would play a straight bat and support the Chairman in his role. So very happy to nominate Councillor Warboys, and I call upon Councillor Field to second the nomination. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Field. Yes, I'm happy to second that. Thank you. We will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governments and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. I have a nomination, the first nomination for Councillor Epignon. If you can cast your votes, please. Councillor Amoroson, I noticed that you're not quite logged in. Can I take your vote manually, please?
Yeah,
Against, thank you. It is showing in blue, so I think it is slow. Sorry. Chair, that is 17 for and 14 against, so that is carried.
Apologies for absence. Oh, sorry. Jumping the gun. Invite Councillor Epignon to declare his office.
I, Councillor Paul Ekanyong, having been duly elected to the office of Vice Chairman of Mid-Suffolk District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake that in performing the functions of Vice Chairman, I shall observe the Code of Conduct as adopted by the Council. Get a pen to sign. I'd just like to thank Councillor Flatman and my seconder, Councillor Haddingham, for their support and their words of, well, Councillor Flatman's words of wisdom, which I shall try very hard to live up to, and I shall certainly do my best to support Councillor Caston in his role as chairman, as well as anything else he would like me to do for him to help him through his year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll now move on to item 3, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I have received apologies for absence from Councillors Norris and Councillor Pratt.
Councillor Steve Phillips as well.
Thank you very much. And item 4, declarations of interest by councillors. Are there any declarations of interest? No. So, item 5, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of March 2022 for accuracy only. Are there any issues with accuracy? Can I have a proposer for those minutes? Councillor Haddingham.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to propose the minutes.
Could I have a seconder? Councillor Eburn.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
I will now ask the Corporate Manager Governance and Civic Office to conduct a vote by show of hands.
Chair, thank you, Chair. So all of those in favour, if you could raise your hands, please.
That's carried. Thank you. Item 6, Chairman's announcements. I refer you to paper MC 22.2 to be noted. Item 7, Leaders' Announcements. I would like to invite Councillor Morley to present her update.
Thank you, Chair. As always, I want to highlight some of the fantastic things the Council has been delivering since we last met. But I also want to begin by acknowledging how wonderful it is to be able to hold our annual council meeting in our own council chamber with so few COVID restrictions. I say few because whilst it is great to see some sense of normality has returned, we must always be mindful that COVID hasn't suddenly just disappeared. The arrival and spread of monkeypox is perhaps a useful reminder of how quickly such things can spread in humans in today's society. And more importantly, though, there are still those in our communities in Mid-Suffolk and in our own cohort of councillors who are more vulnerable, and so it is our duty to continue to try and keep everyone safe and well. I want to begin by reiterating our thoughts and support for the people of Ukraine. I know we have consistently done this at our council meetings, and I know we are all united in this regard. I feel it is vitally important, though, that we continue to ensure that the war remains in the spotlight and at the front of our minds. Suffolk as a whole, and Mid-Suffolk in particular, is playing its part as the public sector in welcoming and supporting those refugees who are fortunate enough to have escaped and come here. And I also want to pay tribute to the generosity and compassion of our residents who have flung open their homes and whole communities to our Ukrainian friends. And some of our councillors are amongst that number, so thank you. Away from the national stage, and of far less importance in the grand scheme of things, it was wonderful to be at the opening of the Duck and Teapot at Needham Lake. It is unbelievable to think that this is the delivery of a 20-year ambition for the town. Although we wouldn't have wished the provider there to have been overwhelmed in their first week, it is a really positive sign of the support and level of demand that so many people have flocked there. I know the provider has made changes to be able to cater for the level of demand and will especially be increasing capacity for the forthcoming bank holiday. Absolutely vital to this new facility is not just the catering aspect, of course, but also the brand new Changing Places facilities. And it is wonderful news that we have been successful in our bid to secure funding for 2 more Changing Places facilities at the Field Museum in Stowmarket and at Stradbrook Swimming Pool and Fitness Centre. This is, of course, in addition to the over £1 million that we've paid across to 49 towns and parishes in April from the Community Infrastructure Levy to ensure other vital local infrastructure can continue to be improved or added across Mid-Suffolk. The other major news since we last met was the start of infrastructure works at Gateway 14. I was immensely proud to be asked to put the first spade in the ground on site on behalf of all of you. I will not go on now about how wonderful Gateway 14 will be for our residents, for employment, for skills, for Stowmarket, for the whole district and for the wider Freeport area. But this is our largest single investment in recent years as Mid-Suffolk to directly deliver an economic stimulus that will build a thriving and more sustainable future for our residents. I know we are all looking forward to celebrating the next milestones in this project as the site begins to take shape. Gateway 14, however, doesn't sit alone and is of course part of our wider strategic approach, particularly to restarting and regrowing our local economy following the pandemic. And I would like to echo Councillor Brewster's words as he launched our economic recovery plan last month, where he said, "Our ambition is to support strong growth across the district, to encourage innovation and creativity, to upskill our communities and help stimulate a wide range of job opportunities. To achieve this, we need to continue building strong working relationships with a range of partners, encouraging investment, connecting our communities and promoting our towns and villages as places that people want to call home." One key aspect of our economy in this region is energy. With Bacton, Sizewell and offshore wind, as well as an increasing number of local energy schemes, it is hard not to see us as powering the nation. And of course energy, and in particular energy prices, have become international news over recent months. Whilst the energy itself is important, so too is how that electricity is transported. As you will know, we are currently being consulted as part of National Grid's East Anglia Green Energy Enablement Project, which is a proposal to build a new high voltage network reinforcement between Norwich, Bramford and Tilbury. And this is just the first stage of consultation on this project, but it has the potential to have a significant impact on large swathes of our district. As such, I've already been engaging with our local MP, Dr. Dan Poulter, and I was really pleased that we were able to provide a briefing for all of our towns and parishes earlier this week. Cabinet is due to consider the issue in detail on Monday the 6th of June on behalf of the Council. However, I do not believe this is, nor should be, a party political matter, and as such, I have ensured that there will be the opportunity for all councillors to speak and help shape the Council's response to the consultation at that meeting. Having said that, I do not want to preempt that debate. I do also feel it is safe to say that many of us and our communities believe that the best option would be for the power to be transported under the sea rather than across the land. And I'm looking forward to having the fuller discussion on the 6th of June. In the meantime, although it is unusual to single out individual officers for praise at council meetings, I would like to take this opportunity to put on public record our thanks to Bron Curtis, whose expertise and professionalism in all things relating to energy and planning continues to be invaluable to us. Thank you, Bron. Of course, I can't talk about energy without also mentioning the cost of living crisis. I'm hopeful that during the course of today, whilst writing my speech, the Chancellor will have had announced a further package of support for those most in need, going beyond the payments of £150, which we are already administering for those in council tax bands A to D. In addition to that, though, we have just published our own draft emergency 5-point plan to help tackle the crisis over the next 6 months. This again is due to be debated at the same Cabinet meeting on 6th of June, and I would encourage as many of you as possible to attend to ask questions. And finally, on a much lighter and more celebratory note, we of course have the Queen's Jubilee and bank holidays next week. There are a plethora of activities going on across the district, and the bunting will be out everywhere. I know you will all want to promote the celebrations happening in your wards both next week and as part of the wider Festival of Suffolk throughout the year, and I hope you will also be able to join me roadside following Cabinet on the 6th of June to cheer on the cyclists as the Women's Tour once again flies through Mid-Suffolk. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morley. Are there any questions for Councillor Morley on items mentioned in her announcements? Councillor Mellon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick couple of clarifications. It's interesting to hear the word plethora in the speech. It doesn't come along very often, and it means a lot to me. Couple of questions then. On this issue of East Anglia Green, which has really stirred up our communities a lot, I'm very grateful for the opportunity for affected members to come and speak at Cabinet. Those who can't make that meeting, will they be able to send in written representations? And secondly, whether the representations are verbal or written, will they be able to amend what the council is going to respond to the consultation? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellon. Councillor Morley.
Everybody has the opportunity of putting in their own written representations online, I believe it's online, independently of the council. So that is the way forward for everybody.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it might seem like semantics, but can I ask the leader and indeed all members and officers if you could refer to Russia's war rather than emphasising Ukraine, because these things actually gradually absorb into the public consciousness, and if we get the blame in the right place by starting with the right word, it's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stringer.
So, sorry to be pedantic, Chair. Could I ask the leader to clarify her clarification regarding the East Anglia Green proposal? You said within your speech that members could come to Cabinet to help shape our response, but then you said that members should go online to respond to National Grid. So I was elected to this council and I would like to be able to influence our response. Can I have clarity that that will be afforded?
Councillor Morley.
As I've just said, you are very welcome to attend Cabinet on the 6th of June, where we will be debating it and you will be allowed to speak.
Thank you. Any further questions? Then we'll move on with the agenda. Item 8, designation of committees and joint committees. To appoint the following committees and joint committees: the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, the Development Control Committee A, Development Control Committee B, Planning Referrals Committee, Licensing and Regulatory Committee, Joint Audit and Standards Committee, and the Joint Appointments Committee. Could I have a proposer to appoint all committees listed in the agenda? Councillor Richardson.
Happy to propose. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Morley. No. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask a question before this goes to whatever next stage it has. And maybe the monitoring officer can answer the question for me. At which meeting do we determine the terms of reference of each of these committees? Thank you.
Chairman, I'm happy to answer that question. The terms of reference are set out in the Constitution, and if those were to be amended, it would come to full council for approval.
Thank you very much. I have a proposer and a seconder. I will ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now showing in blue. If councillors could cast their vote. Thank you. Chair, it does appear to be going slow, but it is now actually started, so you should, if you just persevere, should be able to. Yeah, we just take it by hands up, so if you ask all people in favour.
We're going to take this by a show of hands. Could you please... oh, sorry. I'll let
No, you do it.
Okay. Could you please... so this is the designation of committees and joint committees. To agree the designation of committees as detailed in the agenda. Those four, can you please put your hands up?
You just raised my mouse, now I've raised my mouse.
Is that for Councillor Carter? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's unanimous.
Thank you, that's unanimous, so that's carried. Right, item 9 on the agenda is MC 22.3, Political Balance and Composition of Committees. I refer you to Appendix B in the tabled papers. I would like to invite Emily Yule, Monitoring Officer, to introduce the paper MC 22.3.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to introduce this report, which first asks the Council to agree the number of seats and the political composition of each committee, and then to agree the councillors to be appointed to those committees, which is in your tabled papers. Thank you.
Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, happy to propose, Chair.
Could I have a seconder? Councillor Muller. Sorry, are there any questions on this? Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. Could I just request that in terms of the modern.gov voting app, it presently says to agree recommendations as detailed in report BC 22.3. If that could be revised, please.
Yes, that is a typo, so we can confirm that should be MC. Oh, and it's now correct. Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the electronic vote. Councillor Hicks.
Can I just propose that if the system's really slow tonight, and bearing in mind the amount of votes we've got, how do we overcome that by maybe going to vote by hands? Is that possible? Because if each vote's going to take 5 minutes, we're going to be, we're going to have a very drawn-out evening.
So,
unless anyone massively objects.
That Councillor Hicks is Chairman's discretion. So if this vote doesn't work promptly, we will go to show of hands for the rest of the meeting or until the problem's solved. Right, thank you very much. We're going to conduct this vote by show of hands now. So to agree the recommendation 2.1 to 2.2 as detailed in report MC 22.3, can I have hands for, please? Thank you, that's unanimous, so that's carried. Item 10, election of chairs and vice chairs of committees. To elect a chair and vice chair for the following committees: Mid-Suffolk Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Development Control Committee A, Development Control Committee B, Mid-Suffolk Licensing and Regulatory Committee, and also to elect co-chairs for the following joint committees: Joint Audit and Standards Committee, Joint Appointments Committee. May I have a nomination for Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, please? Councillor Mellon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to nominate Councillor Keith Wellham for that role. Thank you.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Morley. Are there any further nominations? I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct a vote of hands.
Thank you, Chair. All those in favour?
That's unanimous. Oh, just one second. Councillor Wellham is duly appointed as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Thank you. So, may I have nominations for Vice Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee? Councillor Mellon.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Keith Scarf for Vice Chair. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Field. Are there any further nominations? Councillor Muller.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to recommend yourself for that role. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie.
Yes, happy to second.
Thank you very much. So at this point, I would have to... Oh, no,
Yeah, you can't preside at your own election.
but this vote will be on the first one, won't it? So would I preside over that?
Well, the Vice Chair can lead on that,
Yeah.
really. So
Okay.
it's for Councillor Scarf. So if you take votes for that Chair, Vice Chair.
I will now pass over to the Vice Chair to take this vote.
Right. All those that in... So which Vice Chair? Committee A. I beg your pardon, Chair. Right, so this is
One second, please, Councillor. I do have to leave the room during this. So, thank you.
Councillors. So the first vote will be with regards to the nomination of Councillor Scarfs. So, and we're going to do this by a show of hands. So all those in favour, please show. Okay, thank you. All those in favour of Councillor Caston, please show. Right, so that's 16 in favour of Councillor Caston and 14 in favour of Councillor Scarf. So Councillor Caston is duly elected to the Vice Chair. So for the benefit of Councillor Caston, Councillor, you are duly elected as Vice Chair of Overview and Scrutiny.
Thank you. Right, may I have nominations for the Chair of Development Control Committee A? Councillor Mayer.
Chair, I'd like to nominate Councillor Hicks. Done an excellent job over the last year and I look forward to him extending his tenure. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morley. Do I have any further nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yes, I'm very happy to nominate Councillor Sarah Mansell for the Chair of Development Control A.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Davies. Thank you. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct a vote by show of hands.
Thank you, Chair. So we'll take the first nomination, which is Councillor Hicks. All of those in favour, please. Okay. And thank you. And all those in favour of Councillor Sarah Mansell? Chair, that is 17 votes for Councillor Hicks and 14 for Councillor Mansell.
May I have nominations for Vice Chair of Development Control Committee A? Councillor Muller.
Chair, yes, it gives me great pleasure to nominate Councillor Barry Humphries for this role. He's done an excellent job over the last year and I'm more than happy to nominate him. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hadnam.
Thanks, I'm happy to second that.
Do I have any further nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Sarah Mansell for the role of Vice Chair. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Davies. Thank you. So I'll now ask the Corporate Manager, Governments and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Taking the first nomination for Councillor Humphries. Sorry, I can't read my own writing. Councillor Humphries. All those in favour? Thank you. And all those in favour of Councillor Sarah Mansell? That's 14. Again, Chair, that is 17 for Councillor Humphries and 14 for Councillor Mansell.
Councillor Humphries is duly appointed Vice Chair of Development Control Committee A. May I have nominations for the Chair of Development Control Committee B? Councillor Muller.
Thank you, Chair. It gives me great pleasure to nominate Councillor Cathy Guthrie for this role. She's done an absolutely excellent job over the last year. More than happy to nominate her. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Byrne. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to put forward Councillor Andrew Stringer for this role. He has stepped in on occasion to chair this committee, and strangely enough, the sky did not fall in. So I'm sure he could do a great job here. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Field. Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So taking the first nomination for Councillor Guthrie, all those in favour? 17. And taking the second nomination for Councillor Stringer, all those in favour? That's 14. Chair, again, that is 17 for Councillor Guthrie and 14 for Councillor Stringer.
Thank you very much. Councillor Guthrie is duly appointed Chair of Development Control Committee B. May I have nominations for Vice Chair of Development Control Committee B? Councillor Guthrie.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor Muller, please, if I may. Having been Chair for many years, the role has evolved with electronic and more complicated issues arising, and as Chair, you have to have eyes in the back of your head and keep juggling. Having had Councillor Muller as Vice Chair for the last 6 months, along with his experience as member of the Stowmarket Town Council Planning, and his support to me, I am more than happy to nominate him. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hicks.
Happy to second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Stringer for the role of Vice Chair of Development Control B. I know he's worked very well with Cathy and would support her in her role as Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Amoroso. Sorry. I'll now ask the Corporate Manager of Government and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So taking the first nomination for Councillor Muller, all those in favour? 17. And all of those in favour of Councillor Stringer? 14. Chair, again, that is 17 for Councillor Muller and 14 for Councillor Stringer.
Thank you. Councillor Muller is duly appointed Vice Chair of Development Control Committee B. May I have nominations for the Chair of Licensing and Regulatory Committee? Councillor Fleming.
This one? Oh, sorry. This one. I'm Councillor Guthrie. She has been chairing this committee for the past 3 years and has done a competent and very successful job with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morley.
Second, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Penny Otton for the role of Chair of Licensing Regulatory Committee. Very experienced councillor, and I'm sure she would bring a lot to the role. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Field. I will now ask the Corporate Manager Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So taking the first nomination for Councillor Guthrie, all those in favour? 17. And for the second nomination, Councillor Otton, all those in favour? Chair, that is 17-14 again.
Thank you very much. Councillor Guthrie is duly appointed Chair of Licensing and Regulatory Committee. I will now ask, may I have nominations for Vice Chair of Licensing and Regulatory Committee, please? Councillor Guthrie.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to propose Councillor Dave Muller. Licensing is one of those mysteries, and until you're part of the group or committee, you really need to sort of be there to see exactly what goes on. I've been happy to have Councillor Muller alongside to share what I have learned, and along with his wisdom and life's experience and support, I'm more than happy to propose Councillor Muller as Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Flatman.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second.
Thank you. Any further nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Penny Otten for the role of Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mansell. Thank you. I'll now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So taking the first nomination for Councillor Muller, all those in favour? And all those in favour of Councillor Otten? Chair, that is 17-14.
Councillor Muller is duly appointed Vice Chair of Licensing and Regulatory Committee. May I have nominations for the Co-Chair of Joint Audit and Standards Committee? Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to propose Councillor Muller for this role based on his excellent work to date and his detailed knowledge of the brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Morley.
Happy to second that, Chair.
Are there any further nominations? Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Rachel Eburn for this role. We know that she's very experienced sitting on that committee, and she brings a sort of a forensic level of detail to that role, and I'm sure she'll make an excellent chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Warboys. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. So taking the first nomination for Councillor Muller, all those in favour? That's 17. And the second nomination for Councillor Eburn, all those in favour? Chair, that is 17-14.
Thank you. Councillor Muller is duly elected Co-Chair of Joint Audit and Standards Committee. May I have nominations for the Co-Chair of Joint Appointments Committee? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to propose Councillor Morley for to be the Co-Chair of the Joint Appointments Committee.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Flatman.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? So, Oh, okay. I'd like to now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
So for the one nomination, Councillor Morley, all those in favour? Chair, that's carried.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morley is duly appointed Co-Chair of Joint Appointments Committee. Moving on to item 11, MC 22.4, appointments to outside bodies for 21-22. 22-23. I would like to invite, I refer you to Appendix A in the table papers. I would like to invite the leader to introduce paper MC 22.4 and move the recommendation in the report. Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to submit this list of outside bodies to Council. Not sure there's anything else to say, really. It's that's it.
So we'll take that as proposed. Councillor Morley's the proposer. So do we have a seconder? Councillor Richardson.
Happy to second. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. Yeah. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to draw attention to the fact that that paper was amended to remove Haven Gateway Partnership and to update the Food Museum. So those have now been corrected and are on the website. So all of those in favour, please. Chair, that's carried.
Thank you, that's carried. Item 12, appointment of councillors to Shared Revenues Partnership Joint Committee. The nominations have been tabled. Could I have a proposer? Councillor Epignon. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Richardson. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. All those in favour?
Thank you, that's carried. Item 13, appointments to Suffolk Joint Standards Board. The nominations have been tabled. Could I have a proposer? Councillor Eburn.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to propose as per the papers, Liz.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Muller. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. All those in favour?
Thank you, that's carried. So item 14, appointments to the Joint Gypsy and Traveller Steering Group. Council is asked to appoint 4 councillors to the Joint Gypsy and Traveller Steering Group. The nominations have been tabled. Please, could I have a proposer? Councillor Mansell. And a seconder.
Happy to propose.
And a seconder, Councillor Geek.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. All those in favour? Chair, that is carried.
Thank you, that's carried. Item 15, appointments to council working groups. Council is asked to appoint councillors to the following working groups as tabled. Community Governance Review Working Group, Constitution Working Group, Member Learning and Development Working Group, Local Plan Working Group. Could I have a proposer? Councillor Muller. And a seconder, Councillor Richardson. I will now ask the Corporate Manager, Governance and Civic Office to conduct the vote.
Thank you, Chair. All those in favour? That's carried.
Of June 2022 at 5:30 p.m. I declare this meeting closed at 6:34.